Watch 10 great reasons to debate the top 10 first basemen right now. Saturday at 9 Eastern on MLB Network.
Welcome back to MLB Now, presented by Fisher Investments.
When you're talking about free agency, you're talking about older players. I think the industry is realizing that older players have been compensated potentially. The Players Association, and there's a few agents that would really be disappointed in hearing me say this, but the aging curve has potentially been overcompensated in the past. That seems to be correcting a bit.
All right, welcome back to MLB Now with Dan, John, and Joe. I am Fran. That's Ross Atkins, the general manager for the Toronto Blue Jays, at a Pitch Talks event Thursday night, saying that basically, John, that there is now an aging curve, and basically guys who are essentially could be still in their prime aren't going to get those long-term deals anymore from, 7, 8, 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I personally agree. Look, I was a player that even while I was playing, I didn't understand why anyone would get a 7-year contract. I think the fact that you produce and continue to produce and have a nugget at the end of your journey is always important. The age thing bothers me a little bit. Natural aging it's self-explanatory. When we have artificial aging and certain components that allow you to do that, that's a different subject, and that's a different past. But I think the fact that you should be able to use your eyes on certain people to go, his chronological age is not exactly what he's showing. I think the contract should bear the creativity of the player who can play. This is supposed to be your prime, 30, 31, 32, 33. We've now artificially determined, because the influx or infusion of younger players pushing the older player out because it's a cheaper model, that's a part of it too. But there are plenty of older players that can play this game and help a team. Maybe not necessarily get a 5-year.
Fran, here's a problem I've got with, we're now talking about aging to the point that there's an assumption in our game there's two buckets. There's a black bucket and there's a white bucket. For any of us who've been around the game, we know that bucket in the middle, which is called the gray area, that's the biggest bucket of all. When you think about all the things that affect performance, culture, surrounding team, coaching, teaching, usage patterns, travel, climate, venues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then on top of that, StatCast. It's given us a world of tools now to dig below the surface on players' performance to say, okay, is this a trend or is this a one-year abnormality? Now, all of a sudden, someone hits the age of 30, and there's an assumption, I think, in people's minds within a game that their performance is going to go down. That may be true in some cases, but there's no way possible that's true across the board. Baseball is a game made up by individuals, sometimes just to change your scenery with a different performance group. Like, look at Verlander, for an example. Last year, going from the Tigers to the Astros, then pointing something out, him having the aptitude to totally change his style in pitching. So I struggle trying to create the game of baseball is very unique because it's made up of so many unique possibilities that we're now just throwing it into two buckets, and I don't think that's fair.
And the game is trending, younger. We've seen it over the last few years to the point where, do you think teams are adverse to giving guys in their early 30s, not necessarily long-year deals, but deals with high, average annual salary values? We saw Encarnacion take a deal last year, 3 years, $60 million. So the money was still there, just the length of the contract wasn't there.
Sure, the market seems to have overcorrected a bit, and we've been blessed with a lot of this good young talent, which, as John alluded to, with the, you could, if you, depending on the promotion of the player, you could have 3.5 or so years at basically league minimum salary, and so that's if you're trying to decide between some guy's potential on the young side or a veteran free agent who might cost 10 million, 12 million or more, sure, you're going to try to see if the young guy can do it. But I think if you look at some of the numbers, over at Baseball Reference, from 31 to 35 years of old for hitters, their raw OPS last year was the best since 2009, most home runs since 2003, and certainly part of that's the game. There are more home runs. But if you look at pitchers, that same age group compared to the under 25 pitchers, and the 31 to 35 group had better numbers, ERA, K per 9, WHIP. And so, yes, you don't want to give a 7 or 10-year contract to a guy who's going to be ending that deal at 38, 39 39, 40, but 31 to 35,
Joe, I agree with
especially
you.
31 to 33
It's the
is not
danger
old.
zone of getting beyond 35 for me, but now we're already starting to look at 30 as being the danger
That's the
zone.
problem.
And sometimes, John, as you know, development of a player is not a linear thing. It takes years of failure adjustments, and all of a sudden, boom, they start figuring some things out.
As great as these players are, and they're more programmed and prepared by the youth travel and selective teams, as great as they are, they're still not a major leaguer after 3 years. They still have a lot of learning because they have handcuffs. They're too protected. I mean, there is such a conservative, I call it, it's not injury prevention, by the way, because we got injuries going like left and right. That's not the reason they're being protected. So the results are showing. But I think you've got to be able to understand that as you develop as a big leaguer, you're going to get better and better and better if your health is right there in line with it. And when I reached 28, 29, 30, I felt like I had another 10 years easy if I did my diligence of keeping myself in and working harder. But guys today will end their careers so much sooner, part due to financial, but because they've tapped out their resources and maxed out their efforts too soon.
It's not just players right now in their 30s waiting for deals or long-term deals. It's players in their 20s as well. And 100 free agents are still out there, still available. And if we take a look back at what we've seen the last 3 years or so with players who have signed multi